In the not-too-distant future, the world is plunged into a bureaucratic abyss, and everyday life becomes a struggle with absurd rules and an inefficient system. The protagonist, Samuel, works in the Ministry of Information, where his job is to process documents and follow strict bureaucratic procedures. Samuel is a typical employee, burdened with routine, but he dreams of a brighter and more fulfilling life, free from the constant control and madness of the world around him. From the very beginning of the movie, we see how bureaucracy permeates every part of Samuel's life. He lives in a gray apartment surrounded by the noise and oppression of the metropolis. His world is devoid of color, and his dreams of freedom are often interrupted by an unforgiving system. There is also room for funny moments in his life, such as meeting his parents, who are an amusing mix of traditional and modern views of life. One day, Samuel finds himself trapped in his mundane existence when he is sent a notice of delay in processing his vacation request. This situation becomes the catalyst for his inner conflict. He realizes that even the simplest of desires can be dragged into endless debates and arguments with bureaucrats. In this atmosphere, he begins to have nightmares and absurd dreams that reflect his depressed state. In these dreams, he encounters various images that represent his fears and desires, including visions of a radical change in the system he longs for. Samuel soon becomes obsessed with the idea of escaping from this world, and his inner feelings begin to manifest themselves in real life. He begins to see how the lives of the people around him are becoming increasingly absurd. For example, one of his co-workers who seems normal is actually full of paranoia and fear of the system, and this depresses Samuel even more. He begins to realize that people are becoming just part of the system, living by rules that make no sense. Jillian comes into his life, a woman he meets in a store. She symbolizes hope and the opportunity to change his life. Their meeting occurs at the moment when Samuel first feels the spark of life outside the system. They begin dating, and their relationship becomes an important part of his attempt to escape the bureaucracy. Jillian suffers from the same limitations as he does, and together they begin to dream of a better future. However, their relationship is soon overtaken by a system that begins to show its power. Samuel witnesses Jillian's arrest for violations that seem completely absurd. This moment deeply traumatizes him, and he begins to realize how defenseless one is in the face of the system. He realizes that even love cannot save him from the bureaucratic machine that ruthlessly suppresses all human feelings and desires. In search of answers and solutions, Samuel begins to explore different ways of resisting the system. He meets a group of rebels who are trying to change the order of things. They discuss ideas and plans, but ultimately their actions are ineffective because the system is too powerful. This emphasizes the helplessness of the individual in the face of the big state and the absurdity of everything that is happening. Despite all the obstacles, Samuel decides to keep fighting and soon finds himself involved in a case involving corruption in the system. He is assigned to investigate a case of wrongful arrest, and this becomes his chance to change his life. However, the more he immerses himself in the investigation, the more he realizes that the system itself is saturated with corruption and inefficiency. He discovers that his own actions could lead to an even greater disaster. Samuel is confronted by the head of his organization, who is the embodiment of the system. This character represents the inhumanity of the bureaucracy, and their clash becomes the climax of the conflict. Samuel realizes that his struggle is not just a struggle with the system, but also with himself, with his inner fears and desires. He struggles to find a balance between his desire for freedom and his need to obey the rules as the tension builds. Samuel finds himself trapped in his own mind. His dreams become increasingly dark and strange, reflecting his inner feelings and fears. He begins to lose touch with reality, and his attempts to find a way out become increasingly desperate. He realizes that the system will never change, and that the only way out may be the total destruction of this world. In the final part of the story, Samuel makes the decision to fight the system directly. He becomes part of a movement that seeks to destroy the bureaucracy. He tries to find support among people who are also tired of the absurdity of life. Together they begin to take action, but their attempts are quickly suppressed by the system. This creates a sense of hopelessness, and Samuel faces the harsh reality that the system will never allow them to succeed. The movie ends on a somber note, showing how Samuel has completely lost himself in his struggle. He ends up in an institution for the mentally ill, where he is trapped inside his own head, unable to deal with what has happened to him. In this world that was supposed to be reality, he finds only his utter destruction. He realizes that his dreams of freedom and happiness were just an illusion, and he ends up becoming part of the system he was trying to destroy. All his struggle turns out to be in vain, and this creates a feeling of deep frustration and hopelessness. This story is about a man trying to find his place in a world that squeezes him, and how bureaucracy can destroy even the brightest of dreams. Samuel is a reflection of the struggles of many people trying to survive in a world where rules and regulations are insane. Every moment, every scene in the film is imbued with a sense of absurdity that emphasizes how hard it is to be human in a system that strips you of choice and freedom.